Namaste, friends. Namaste. Welcome back to Namaste, Namaste, and welcome to the Viniyoga Unplugged that we do every month. Today is the 22nd of October 2025. Let's begin with our invocation. Om Shuklambaradharam Veshnam Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये यस्य द्विरदवक्त्राद्याः पारिषद्याः परशतम् विघ्नन्ति सततम् विश्वक्सेनन्तमाश्रये ज्ञानानन्दमयं देवं निर्मलस्फटिकाकृतिम् आधारं सर्वविद्यानां हयग्रीवमुपास्महे पुण्डरीकासनासीनं पाण्डुराभ्रेन्दुसन्निभम् अखण्डबोधजनकं हयग्रीवमुपास्महे गुरुभ्यस्तद्गुरुभ्यश्च नमो वाकमधीमहे वृणीमहे च तत्राद्यौ दम्पती जगतां पति श्रीनगर्यां महापुर्यां ताम्रपर्ण्युत्तरे तटे श्रीतिन्त्रिणे मूलधाम्ने षट्कोपाय मङ्गलम् नीलातुङ्गस्तनगिरितटे सुप्तमुद्बोध्य कृष्णम् पारार्त्यं स्वं श्रुतिशतशिरःसिद्धमध्यापयन्ति स्वोच्छिष्टायां सृजनिगलितं या बलात्कृत्य भुङ्क्ते गोदा तस्यै नम इदमिदं भूय एवास्तु भूयः जयतु जयतु नाथो न्यायतत्त्वप्रणीता जयतु जयतु योगी योगगुह्यप्रवक्ता जयतु जयतु साक्षात् तत्त्वदर्शी महर्षिः जयतु जयतु भक्तिर्मूलकन्दं मुनीन्द्रः स्वाधयन्य सर्वेषां त्रय्यन्तार्थं सुदुर्ग्रहम् स्तोत्रायामास योगीन्द्रः तं वन्दे यामुनाह्वयम् यो नित्यमच्युतपदाम्बुजयुग्मरुक्मा व्यामोहितस्तदितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर्भगवतस्य दयैकसिन्धो रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणं प्रपद्ये श्रीमान् वेङ्कटनाथार्य कवितार्किककेसरी वेदान्ताचार्यवर्यो मे सन्निधत्तां सदा हृदि श्रीकृष्ण ब्रह्मतन्त्रोत्तम गुरुकरुणावप्तचक्रङ्क भाष्यम् वैराग्याचारवार्धौ वरदपदमुखे लक्ष्मणे न्यस्तभारम् श्रेवागेशात्ततुर्यं षठ रिपु यतिराड्वेदचूडार्यमूर्तिम् नोत्नं श्रीरङ्गनाथं कलिरिपुमनघं ब्रह्मतन्त्रं श्रयामः। श्रीमन्नूतनरङ्गनाथयतिराड् आप्तात्मविद्यालयम् श्रीमन्नूतनलक्ष्मणार्ययतिराट् सम्प्राप्ततुर्याश्रमम् श्रीवासेन्द्रकटाक्षसन्ततसुधा लक्ष्यात्मयोगाश्चितम् श्रीमन्नूतनवागधीशयमिनं भक्त्याश्रयामो गुरुम् श्रीकृष्णवागीशयतेश्वराभ्यां सम्प्राप्तचक्राङ्कणभाष्यसारम् श्रीनोत्नरङ्गेन्द्रयतौ समर्पितस्वं श्रीकृष्णमार्यं गुरुवर्यमीडे विरोधे कार्तिके मासे शतताराकृतोदयम् योगाचार्यं कृष्णमार्यं गुरुवर्यमहं भजे। शिष्यकं कृष्णमार्यस्य नाथवंशप्रदीपकं कल्याणगुणरूपन्तं श्रीदेशिकं नमाम्यहम् प्रशान्तपुरुषाकारं विनियोगप्रचारकं विशेषवैदिकं सूरिं तन्देशिकं स्मराम्यहम् लक्ष्मीनाथसमारम्भान् नाथयामुनमध्यमान् अस्मत् आचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि ओम्। ओम शांति शांति शांति। Namaste, my dear friends. Namaste to all of you, and welcome back to our monthly meeting about different topics of yoga. And today we are going to present a topic called PARIヂāMA, which is translated normally in a non-spiritual context as change. But in the context of spiritual path, we call it as a transformation. We call it as a transformation, hopefully a positive transformation, because a change need not be only a positive change. A change can always be a negative change as well. Bad can become good, good can become bad. Both ways are possible. But in the context of spirituality, when we are talking about the spiritual path, normally we are hoping that we are transforming into something which is better or much more positive. So this idea of parinama, I have to say, is a very important paradigm of yoga, and this is called the Parinamavada, the paradigm of transformation. That means yoga believes in the possibility of change. Imagine if there was no hope for change, we don't really need to focus on anything, because we would just be inert objects if we are not really changing. But if you think about it, even some inert objects change. They change because of the seasons or the time, passage of time, or some changes in the nature, etc. Like even if you look at carbon, from many years of pressure, it becomes a diamond. So even inert objects, that is non-sentient objects, go through transformation, which means sentient objects also have the possibility for transformation. And this is very, very important to understand. And this is a very deep belief that we should have in the yoga path. One of the things I notice with a lot of people, even in the yogic path, is people become very fixed and judgmental of other people. Like if somebody is behaving badly one time or even two times, we just put them in a box saying that they are a bad person and they don't deserve to be given another chance. Now, if we are sincerely following the teachings of yoga, if we don't believe that even such people can transform, then we are ourselves not fit to be teaching or practicing yoga, because yoga path strongly believes in the capacity of positive transformation. There are many, many examples of people with very dark histories or past becoming great people of wisdom, light, and even fantastic teachers. In our Vedic mythology, we have so many examples, like we have people like Valmiki, the author of Ramayana, who was in fact a very bad person in the first part of his life, a very aggressive person who became a very, very wise rishi, one of the most important rishis in our tradition. You take the same example of Vishwamitra, the great sage who gave us, who is honored for the teaching the Gayatri mantra to Rama. Vishwamitra, in the first part of his life, was a very arrogant and egoistic and greedy king. Now, he was also, I mean, he could have been washed off as an arrogant, egoistic person, but somehow he went through the path of penance, of tapaswadhyaya and Ishvara pranidhana, and became a great Brahma Rishi, and we honor him so greatly. So we must believe in the possibility of transformation, especially if we are in the path of yoga. So if you are sitting there judgmental about other people, saying that, oh, they will never change, they will never change, then really you should ask yourself the question, are you even fit to be in the spiritual path if you are not going to give somebody else the chance? Having said that, there's the other side for parinama, which is the parinama is normally coming through two possibilities. One is the possibility of, let's say, the guna itself, the nature itself. And the other is the possibility of some intervention. Like, for example, we age every day. That's a change. There's nothing to stop that aging process. We will age. There is no way we can stop that. But that is the transformation because of guna. But there is another transformation that is because of interference, what we call nimitta, an interference where we take some steps. And this is where the idea of self-empowerment and self-responsibility comes. And we are taking the necessary effort and sustaining the effort in order for the change to happen. Please remember, my dear friends, I have a mantra about this topic, which is that the only way to change a pattern is change the pattern. You cannot expect a miracle that one day you just sleep and wake up as a new person. Now, it could happen. If it's a miracle, it can happen. But you can't wait for that miracle and expect that miracle to happen. In yoga, very much the idea of effort is what we call the foundation of transformation. Patanjali talks about abhyasa and vairagyam. We have to have some sustained effort, and we also have to have some detachment or letting go. If we do not engage in any of this, the change will not happen. And this is a very important principle that Patanjali is saying, that yoga is about changing our behavior, our patterns. And this change is presented in a very fascinating way by Patanjali in the 4th chapter, Sutra number 2, Jati Antara Parinamaha Prakriti Apurat. The transformation that we go through is called a transformation when our entire behavior at every level is changing. It's not enough if you say in your words, I want to change, but in your behavior, you don't change. This is where the principle of alignment comes in. What we feel, what we speak, and what we do must be aligned. So Patanjali is saying, therefore, this is related to the concept of Satya. And this is where when we talk about the paradigm of yoga, saying that it is presenting the topic of Parinamavada, the school of change, the principle of change, we also are saying that there is a connected principle to this, which is the principle of Sattvada. Sattvada is the principle of truth. We cannot transform into whatever we want. We can only transform into what Satyam exists in us. And that is where that sutra I just quoted for you, Jati Antara Parinamaha Prakriti Apurat. Antara Jati, that seed that is within us, that grows and fills every part of our existence. When you look at the mango tree, for example, the mango roots will have the essence of the mango. Try to smell the root of the mango, cut it and smell it, you will see the smell of the mango. Cut a leaf of the mango, smell it, you will smell the essence of the mango. Cut a fruit of the mango, you will smell the fruit of the mango. So every part of the mango tree is transformed into this mango-ness, which is the satyam of this, what we call mango seed. And in that same way, when we have to transform, we can't become whatever we want. There are some antara jatis, inner seeds, inner swabhavas. We have some predispositions. We have some seed potentials. This is where the concept of swabhava, swadharma comes in. We can't become whatever we want. A simple example, I am a man. I can't become a mother. I'm not having that seed potential in me. So the jati antara does not allow me to become a mother. Whereas when a woman becomes a mother, every part of her body embodies the motherhood while she is carrying the child. And that's what is the meaning of this sutra, that the idea that we can change or transform into something must always be consistent with Satyam. The Satyam that we are having in our existence. This is where the concept of Satvada and Parinamavada are together in the Yoga Sutra, in the yoga paradigm of Patanjali. We just can't become anything we want. Today, people just talk some nonsense where they say, oh, if you only work hard, you can become whatever you want. Maybe, but that's not what you're meant to be. And it's not even the truth, because there are some limitations in the Prakriti that will prevent us from becoming whatever we want to become. And this is where Patanjali is talking about this kind of change. And Patanjali is saying that there are two kinds of transformation. One is called the Chitta Parinama and the other is the Prakriti Parinama. Chitta Parinama is for the mind and the Prakriti Parinama is for what is called Bhuta and Indriya, the elements and the senses. Patanjali, in the Chitta Parinama, in the transformation of the mind, he says that our mind can be transformed from a disturbed pattern, which is what we have now, to a pattern of stability. We have a disturbed pattern. From that disturbed pattern, we can have the pattern of stability. And again, why do we have disturbed pattern? Again, there are many, many reasons. But in the yoga rahasya of Nathamuni gives us a few reasons. Apalanad yamadinam bhakyavastu upasevanat ajagarukato abhyasa prana anigranad yami. He gives us 4 reasons. Apalanad yamadinam, by non-practicing the yama, niyama and the other angas of yoga. That means by non-practicing the holistic path of yoga. This is a very big problem in our yoga field today, including all the great people who call themselves yoga acharyas. They are only talking but not practicing the yama and niyama. Asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyanam and samadhi will not work unless the foundation of yama and niyama are established. So that's one reason. Bhakyavastu upasevanat, we become servants of material external objects. We are becoming the servants of sensory objects. And remember, Yoga Rahasya, Nathamuni wrote in the 800s. At that time, there was much less objects and capitalistic products available than today. Today, we are surrounded by products, surrounded by temptations. Ajagaru kataho abhyase, carelessness in practice. We practice whatever we want, however we want, whenever we want. Practice listening to music, practice listening to the TV, practice eating some cappuccino in the same time. All this is carelessness in practice. Prana anigrahanat yami, lack of conserving our prana. Lack of conserving prana is not only through pranayama, but again, there are different ways. For some of you who are interested, just the last set of 5 videos on our YouTube channel was about how to conserve prana. So if you're interested, you can have a look. There are many ways in which we have to conserve prana. It's because of this mind gets into what we call vyuthana samskara, the disturbed pattern. Patanjali is saying one of the positive transformation that is presented in the yoga is a move from vyuthana samskara to nirodha samskara. That's why yoga is presented as chitta vritti nirodha. Having the mind to be able to be in a quiet place, in a focused place. This is what is called as Chitta Vritti Nirodha or Nirodha Samskara. So the transformation of the mind is presented. In this itself, Patanjali is giving us many layers from what we call Nirodha Parinama. He talks about Samadhi Parinama and Ekagrata Parinama, different hierarchies, but they are all just the same under the same heading, umbrella of what we call Nirodha Parinama, that we are able to transform into a state of mind that is focused and attentive. When we do that, different siddhis are achieved. And this is very realistic also, my dear friends, because when you want to succeed in a project, in any project in life, whether it's completion of your university degree or completion of building your house or successful marriage or successful relationship, you need to put an effort sustained. That means you must not get distracted. For that, you need to have Nirodha Samskara. If the mind keeps getting distracted, then you will not actually achieve, you will not achieve the result, the siddhi. And that's why Patanjali is presenting these first. In the beginning of the chapter number 3, which is focused on samyama, which is talking about siddhis that is possible through yoga, which require an attentive mind. A mind that is easily distracted, it will not achieve success. And that's why today we have so many of us who are failures, because we are so easily distracted, so easily disturbed. Small things disturb us. Small things are agitating us. In the same way, Patanjali is also reminding us that the transformation in Bhuta and Indriya are also possible. Etena bhutendriyeshu dharma lakshana avastha parinamaha vyakhyataha. He says that there are the possibility for our body and senses also to transform because of dharma, its nature, because of lakshana, interference, some positive interferences. Like, for example, if you do some yoga practices, physical practices, your body can become stronger, more healthy. If you eat proper diet, your body can become more healthy. So there is an interference. You are interfering with something. You are bringing some positive, let's say the word interference may not be the best word, catalyst. There is some catalyst for change. Similarly, avastha, time also is necessary. Time does not mean that you have to wait for the right time for acting. This is the very important thing, my dear friend. There is no right time for action than the present moment. The time for action is the present moment. The time for the consequence of action may or may not be now, because some actions have immediate consequence, some actions have delayed consequence. Patanjali also talks about this. Sopakrama nirupakrama karma tat samyamat aparanta jnanamarishte va. Some actions, the consequences are instantaneous, immediate. Some actions, the consequences are delayed, and you cannot control that. So, though the time of action is now, the time for it to take fruition into consequences is not in your hands. This is also what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that karmani eva adhikaraha te, you only have the right for the action. You have no control over the consequences. So that's why many of us today, we are becoming a bit what we call selfish or calculative, saying, if I don't get consequence, I don't act. That's not right. We have to act. What will happen and when it will happen is not in our control. That's why Patanjali is teaching us that Shraddha is the foundation of all spiritual practices, because you cannot know what is on the other side. If you know what is on the other side of the wall and then you cross the wall, that is not based on faith. Faith is taking that leap of faith, step forward without knowing where it will lead, but having the confidence that wherever it will lead, you will manage. That's faith. That's faith in your own ability, that, hey, even if some challenges come, I'll manage. That's what is Shraddha. It's not to wait and say, oh, let me have plan B, plan C, plan D, plan Z, plan Z1, plan Z2, plan Z3 before I do anything. That's basically just being a victim of your own bullshit. So please do not delay the action. That's what Patanjali is saying. Transformation can manifest later, but the effort to transform starts now. That's why the very first word of the Yoga Sutra is atha. Now is the time for action. There is no right time or wrong time. And my grandfather also used to say it in his own way. Because some people would say, oh, now is not the good time, now is not the. My grandfather would say, you hold God in your heart and do the action, that's the best time. That's all you need to do. Hold the divine in your heart and act. So this is where Patanjali is talking about the concept of what we call dharma parinama, which is the transformation that is based on our what we call swabhava, nature, and we also transform based on lakshana, some interferences, as well as avastha, the concept of time. Like, for example, you take plants. When I say the time, you may grow some crops. You have to take care of the crop throughout the year, but it only gives you fruits in a particular season. For example, mangoes normally in India only comes in the summer season. You will not really get mango in October or December. But it doesn't mean that you don't take care of the mango plant throughout the year. You have to you have to put the effort throughout the year. The crops, the fruits of the action come later when we don't know. And one year you may get 40 mangoes, one year you get 100 mangoes, and maybe one year you don't get any mangoes. It's okay. We have to continue to put the effort. The consequence of our effort is not always in our hands. And this is one of the things that Patanjali also says, that transformation, do not do transformation based on expectation, because what seeds we have, we don't always fully know. But the transformation will only happen through the seeds that are present. Shanta udita avyapadesha dharma anupati dharmi. A mango seed only has a mango potential, but we may have more than one potential. I always remember a student of my father. She was from New Zealand, and she was working for the New Zealand government, I think for a tax office or something like that, when she started practicing yoga. And when she started practicing yoga with my father, suddenly she discovered a potential of poetry, and she wrote lots of poetry. Her name was Anne Bryce. She passed away some years ago, but wonderful poems she used to write. So how did this potential come, which she even did not know? So what you will transform into may not always be predictable. So this is where don't expect what changes will happen, because that expectation will always disappoint you. Remember, santosha gives you happiness, not expectations. So do not transform with an expectation. Do not put effort because of expectation. Now comes the more difficult topic. Why is it so difficult for change? Why do we have the obstacle for change? Because we get so in love with our nature that we know is not right, but we still don't change. Now, this is because of the concept of the idea that when we want to work on a spiritual transformation, normally we are working in the opposite direction. Now, think about something. Let's say you believe in something, but you have to do something against that belief. How prone you will be. Like, for example, I give a simple example. If my own case, I am a vegetarian and I believe strongly in that. Now, if somebody asks me a change into becoming a meat eater, it will be very difficult for me because it's opposite to what I believe in, right? So everything that is against our belief, we will find it difficult. Now transport this into your own personal hesitation or resistance to transformation. You see, right from the time we are born, we have been fed with vasanas, and we start to believe in those impressions that have been presented to us. Like parents want us to be this or that. Like when I grew up in India, if you were an engineer, a doctor, or a lawyer, that was considered respectable because then you would get a job for life. And this is the brainwashing that parents would say, oh, you have to get this job, you have to get this job, you have to become this, you have to become this. Now, anybody who did something different, poor guy had such bad self-esteem because it was not encouraged. You start to believe that you are not good enough if you don't do this. The same happens when people or parents are ignoring us or violent to us, or they say, call us names like you are a stupid or you are an idiot. But then these are people who are supposed to love us. So we get into this behavior that this is the kind of people who should love us. And therefore we search for the same patterns in the people who are abusive to us in romantic relationships, etc. So but on the intellectual level, we know that this is not right. But why is it so difficult is because deep inside we have that belief that this is what is appropriate, because that is what we have grown up with. So to turn around and do the opposite, we have a lack of sustained effort. That's what Patanjali calls anavastitatva. No, sorry, alabdha bhumikatva. We are unable to persevere because we have to go against the flow. And that is where, my dear friends, Patanjali also gives us the answer in the second chapter. Pratipaksha bhavana, have the opposite feeling. So what you have to change is not in the effort, but in the feeling that you yourself have of being worthy or unworthy. Don't practice, don't learn, don't do an action for a validation from some outsider. Because if you do that, even though you get validation, you don't even hear it. Because in your heart, you don't validate yourself. So that's the greatest parinama, the transformation that has to happen, which is your own belief, the pratipaksha bhavana, the 180-degree change. Pratipaksha bhavana is a 180-degree change from feeling unworthy that you feel worthy, from feeling small to feeling real, from feeling incomplete to feeling complete, from being unsatisfied to feeling content. When that change happens, when you yourself can transform, that parinama happens, the effort becomes easy. Because then your effort is in the same direction of your belief. Your effort becomes anuloma, easier. Otherwise, it stays viloma, harder, and it's always more difficult to sustain energy in the opposite direction. Think about it, how much more easy it is to swim in the direction of the river than the opposite direction. So that's why we need to change our fundamental belief system, and that is the parinama that is most important. The transformation of our personal belief from identifying ourselves through other people's perception of us to our own recognition and validation of ourselves. If we are waiting for external validation, we will take number of lifetimes to get liberated. Whereas if we can validate ourselves at a deep level, we will be free very soon. Our efforts will be very, very easy. And that's the biggest parinama that Patanjali is talking about. And that is why we talk about the mind. Patanjali is talking about samadhi in the first chapter, samadhi in the second chapter as well, because the end of Ashtanga Yoga is samadhi. Is not because samadhi is the goal. It's a milestone. Samadhi leads us to clarity. A quiet mind leads us to clarity. A busy mind will not give us clarity. So when a quiet mind gives us clarity, we recognize our own satya. We recognize our satya, we will be self-sufficient, we will have santosha, we will have clarity on our dharma, and we will walk that path no matter what the other person says. Because the clarity comes from within. That's why samadhi is not the goal of yoga, it's a milestone in the path of yoga. Ritambhara tatra prajna Shrutanumana prajnabhyam anya vishaya vishesharthatvat tajjaha samskaraha anya samskara pratibandhi. The change of our behavior will happen automatically when there is clarity. A simple example, again, one more mantra that I always recite: once you know, you cannot unknow. Imagine if you know that your friend is cheating you of money, your behavior with them will automatically change. You will not continue the same behavior with them, right? In the same way, once you reach samadhi, and you know your truth, you cannot unknow the truth. If you do that, that's self-sabotage, self-harm. So please, that's why Patanjali is talking about quietening the mind. Your clarity is not going to come by thinking more, but by quietening the mind more. A busy mind is a mind with anxiety. That's why when you are very anxious, you will see your mind racing with thoughts. When you become too intellectual, it's anxiety. When you have faith, mind is calm. Mind is not confused. You're clear. Even if other people say something different, you are clear. And it's not because of stupidity or stubbornness, because there is a clarity that comes. Because if it is stupidity or stubbornness, you will be agitated when somebody else disagrees with you. But if it's Shraddha, you are very calm because mind doesn't get disturbed. So that is when the parinama happens, the inner parinama happens. And that is where the Pratipaksha Bhavana is a very helpful tool. So Pratipaksha Bhavana is possible way to quieten the mind to begin with. Hopefully that leads us further. That's why Yama and Yama lead to later angas of yoga, including dharana, dhyanam, and samadhi eventually. So we may not be able to start with dharana, dhyanam, and samadhi, and that is why Patanjali offers us Pratipaksha Bhavana in the second chapter. Change the feeling around how you value yourself. Start asking that question. Because many of you who are here in the yogic path, in the spiritual path, you are here because there's something in you that is unanswered. You are still searching for something that you have not yet found. Because if you found that, you don't need this anymore. Yoga is, after all, a tool. And you only need a tool when you have a necessity for something. It's like only when you are sick, you take medication. So once you find what you are seeking for, you won't need that yoga. So obviously you are seeking. So ask yourself, what is it that you are seeking? And how you are defining yourself otherwise. How do you value yourself? And see how many negative beliefs you have about yourself. And start to make a Pratipaksha Bhavana, the change, a transformation, to start believing in the opposite of these negative values, negative belief system. If you feel you are not good enough, start to feel that you are good enough. If you feel that you are not unhappy, if you're unhappy, start to feel that you are happy. If you feel that you are not having enough, start to feel that you have enough. See, make that change and start to see how you can define yourself in that way. If you're not happy with your job, ask yourself, why are you in that job? What makes you happier? If you're not happy in a certain relationship, ask yourself, what's the opposite scenario? So try to make that switch, because that switch will lead you to many further changes. And sustain that. Do not just feel that for 5 seconds and then go back to your own pattern. Make a small step and continue in that direction. Don't take one step forward, 4 steps backward. That doesn't help. Take one step forward and then one more step forward. It's okay to go step by step rather than try to go 4 steps forward and then 16 steps backward. Ask yourself this question and bring about a big parinama in yourself to come from within your comfort zone to a place where you are comfortable in every zone. You're comfortable everywhere. Because that's when you are actually in peace with yourself. So please remember, for this, miracles will not help you. The only way to change a pattern is change the pattern. So please remember this, my dear friends, a very important teaching in Patanjali's teaching, the concept of parinama. It's a paradigm of yoga, the topic of positive, appropriate transformation, which is consistent with the reality of us. Sattvada and Parinamavada must always go hand in hand. So this is a brief explanation of the topic of Parinama. And don't forget, procrastination is a big enemy of transformation. So start by taking a step by shifting your bhavana, because that bhavana is what will help you go against the procrastination. Procrastination is a trauma response, and the only way to change that trauma response is change the feeling around yourself, your own definition of yourself. That's why the Pratipaksha Bhavana is presented. So with this, my friends, we will come to a conclusion. We will make a small chant and we will meet next month. Om Tajayovaravranimahe Gata Yajnaya Gata Yajnapataye Daive Swastirastuna Swasthirmanushabhyah Ordhvanjighatu bheshajam Shanno asto dvipade Shan chatushpade Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste, friends. Namaste. Thank you for being here. Namaste.